Joe, some big comments coming out of the Big 12 this week in reference to Commissioner Brett Yormark as he responds to some of the comments that Greg Sankey had over the last couple of days in SEC spring meetings. But Brett Yormark coming out in massive favor for the 5+11. I'm not going to read everything that he states here. He talks about that it's best for football. He brings up Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey saying they need to do what's best for the sport, not just for their conferences. But it seems as if the Big 12 is in favor of the 5 automatic qualifiers plus 11 at-large bids for a 16-team playoff. Joe, do you smell what's cooking right now? I don't. I think he's saying that because the best interest of the Big 12, the way that he sees it. I don't think that Brett Yormark and the Big 12 are coming out here in reference to saying, oh, we're just saying what's best for the sport. That sounds like horseshit to me.
I kind of love like how the athletic directors, unlike all the coaches, the administrators, any of that stuff, it really gives off high school lunch table vibes. Like seriously, we can sit here and listen to statements and read statements, and then afterwards on the show, we get to interpret them. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. I think one thing that we didn't talk about before the show, maybe that this is some sort of feud that's building between them and the Big Ten. We know that the Big Ten aggressively was against the 5-11 model. They were we talked about this on Wednesday, they were trying to produce stipulations for the change to the SEC schedule for them to add a 9th game. We talked about how the SEC no way in hell is going to want to do that. The Big Ten's trying to be difficult. What does Yormark have to gain jumping in here and saying, oh, we're for the 5-11 model? For the most part.
Another team. That's
right.
what I think.
We'll get to kind of like talking about the future outlook for the Big 12 in a second and some of our thoughts on how this conference is going to look in a few years. But is there something that we don't know about between him and Petitti and the Big Ten? Like, is there something that we're missing here that he's kind of trying to take a shot at Petitti? Because that's like the first thing that comes to mind, that he's got some sort of a problem that he is airing out. He understands that he technically doesn't really have any say in the decision-making here because it's the Big Ten and the SEC. He's picking a side, and he's picking the SEC side for one reason that we're unaware of.
Which is so funny because the SEC took his 2 top performing teams in Oklahoma and Texas.
Right.
So I don't think that it's a shot at Tony Petitti as much as it is that they think in a 5 automatic qualifier plus 11 at-large bid seating, they always feel as if that the Big 12 can get 2 teams in. Always. Right? Like, I feel like they think that they can do that. Now, they didn't last year. But if you go to a 4-4-2-2-1 model, I think that the Big 12 is a little bit wanting to be hesitant in reference to some of those teams going into this playoff and getting exposed. I don't think they want to play the games, if I'm being honest. I think they want a chance to build a little bit, because if you're able to get one team in and then let it play out, I don't know how much they're willing to want to get more teams in. I think he runs a little bit scared because, Joe, we talked about Texas, Arizona State last year. That's fine. Joe, the Big 12 has been getting their asses kicked when it comes to playing in the playoff. I mean, absolutely getting abused, whether it be TCU with Georgia, whether it be Oklahoma, whether it be Texas to some extent with Washington. They have gotten exposed. I think that he feels as if, I'm sure that they've done their numbers and feel as if at a 16-team playoff that they can get more than 2 teams in. Because in the 15-16 model, if a team is 10-2, 11-1, they're going to be around there. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at it. Joe, BYU and Iowa State were in that 15-16 mark. So at what point do you look at it and say, well, maybe we can really push and get in here and try to get into the field of 16? Now, I'm not saying that he's running and being scared here, but there is one thing. For whatever reason, it feels as if that he's playing he's trying to come out and say, we're doing in the Big 12, we're doing what's best for the sport. I don't believe him.
Yeah,
But
I think it's a BS. That's like such jargony BS cliche
without a
response.
doubt. Without a doubt. He is bullshitting his way through this. He feels that they can get in more teams in the 5+11, and there may be some years that they don't have 2 teams that deserve to get in, and they don't want that to be exposed. But I will tell you this, he's not wrong. And I do think as if the ACC is going to get on board with this, and I do feel like that the SEC, Big 12, and ACC will agree to this, and the Big 10 might be left out. And I think it might be for the best overall thing because they're pointing out one conference. They're only pointing out the SEC in this. We talked about this on Wednesday. The Big 10 having issues with not going to 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3. Why do they want to do that one? See, we debated this the whole time. What we didn't debate was, why does the Big 10 want that so badly?
I think that they want security. I mean, they want security. They want
exactly. But why
they don't want to land into an uncertain future?
It's like a girlfriend or wife who always wants you to tell them that they're pretty and that they're not fat in their dress. Why do they want security?
They understand, and this is how I'm reading into it. And this is not me saying that the Big 12, the Big 10 isn't strong enough to continue to.
It's
rise.
not. But
wait. But so they at the current moment are hot right now. They're very hot right now. They want to take advantage of the fact that they're hot right now to maintain a hold of the power over what the future conference looks like.
Bingo.
I don't know if they think that down the line they're going to slip. I don't know what it is. We know what the top teams are in the conference. There are 4 really good teams in the Big 10 consistently. And then there's a couple of teams that are usually floating around there. So maybe there is a fear with the teams that are floating around there that we could end up in a situation where Illinois, USC, Washington, whatever it is, Michigan, are all beating up on themselves. They're fearful that those teams won't get into the mix because they finished with 4 losses, whatever it ends up being. But I think that's to that point where they see that they have power right now. They want to continue the momentum and they want to hold on to it. They want to look towards the long term of understanding of like, if we're locked into 4 spots, we're guaranteed that much money. And then we just hope that every single year that maybe we get a 5th team in.
There you go. They want the security from the financial standpoint, which the other conferences are saying, we're confident enough. Look, give us one auto bid and then let the field decide. Joe, what's wrong with that? Like, if that's where if we want to do auto qualifiers, fine. It's basically, Joe, at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically what the NFL does. Whoever wins their division gets in. And then you have at large after that. Do you not?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's a 5+11 model. Joe, how many teams? I mean, there's more divisions, but how many teams get into the NFL playoff? It's
7.
16.
No.
Or it's 8. No, it's not 8.
There's an odd number. It's 7 on each side.
Oh, 7.
Wait.
14 teams get into the playoff. Yeah, it is 14. You're right. 14 teams get into the playoff.
Yeah, it's 14.
So win your division, you have an auto qualifier, and everything else is at large with wild card.
Yes.
Why not go to it? Why not play your way in? Now I have another thought here.
Well, actually, wait. Hold on, everyone. Quick. So the only thing that kind of flows into that though is almost half of the teams in the NFL get in. So why is their playoff so much bigger than college football?
There's only 32, and they don't have enough. But everybody's playing each other damn near in the regular season.
So that's the point. We should.
But hold on, okay. You're almost playing half the teams any damn way. You play a division outside. I mean,
I was mostly just taking a shot at those that are completely against the 16-team playoff for college football is like we have that many teams that get in for.
You have 130 something. You're going to do a 70-team playoff?
No, you're not going to do that. I'm not advocating for that at all. And I've said that 16 is the biggest expansion point. I'm more so pointing out that I don't think there's anything wrong with doing 16 teams, and we've talked about this.
Let me throw this out there to you. Big Ten, you're about to do a deal with the SEC that you guys will match up in the beginning of the season. Am I wrong there, Joe? Because that's what I'm understanding, correct?
That's expected, yep.
Why don't we let the field decide? If the Big Ten teams win, let's say they go 6-4 in games, fine. Fine, you will get that extra team that's 9-3 in over a team that's in the SEC because you showed on the field that your conference is deeper. I mean, am I the crazy one here? You're going to play it out on the field any damn way. So if the Big Ten goes 7-3 against the SEC, why wouldn't Illinois get in over South Carolina or Bama? Because it's a tougher league, right? It played out on the field. Can we let the field decide?
Well, I mean, this is why I'm consistently a strong advocate for. As somebody who played at a FCS program, we both did. I know that removing the gimme games, the bye games, the easy victories, those things, it kind of kills part of the sport. Those programs are going to be hurting for money. But having a full slate, the NFL, you're for the most part, you're playing all evenly matched teams. Even a team as bad as Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers, they can pull off an upset and a victory because there's still NFL players on the roster. And I'm saying this to say that having competitive scheduling across the board, all 12 regular season games, or at least 11 of the 12 regular season games are against Power 4 opponents, I think that that's ultimately one of the bigger solutions. I know that we're kind of veering off of the conversation, the starting point of where we got with this, with the playoff formation.
But we're really not. We're really not in the grand scheme of things, which is so wild in all of this.
Well, at the end of the day, what would be best for the sport is if there was a way. I don't know how you would create a system to do this. You'd need to figure out some sort of revolving setup. Every team should play a team in the other Power 4 conferences. I know that would be a shit show. You probably wouldn't have any FCS or G5 games in that situation, but you should have to find a way to schedule an ACC, a Big 12, and an SEC team if you're a Big 10 team. That would solve our problem. Would it not? It would be a proving point. This is the record that you had. And I know that doesn't necessarily truly solve it because Alabama can go and schedule Northwestern.
Well, what do you do with Group of 5? Because they have an automatic qualifier too. See what I'm saying?
I mean, Group 5 shouldn't even be in the playoff.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree with that. But listen, at the end of the day, back to Yormark's comments. He says that he wants to do what's best and not what's best for the conferences. He implores Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti to do what's best for the sport and not the conferences. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, like me coming out here saying that we want a 5+11 is showing no conference any favor. I'm not showing the SEC any favor. We're not showing the Big Ten any favor. Why not do that? Because the best will decide the best. Like that's just how. If that's the rule of what we're given, I would rather the teams that are proving it on the field to do it. Like I hate bringing up this point up every time to what Yormark is saying, but I want the field to decide, and I think that's what he's saying. At least in his own bias, it feels to me that it is what's best for the sport.
I'm kind of shocked by how candid Yormark is in this statement because
I am too.
This is one of the first commissioners to not play the politic game of just looking towards what is best for his conference. I think that there's an underlying thought here of an expectation that like 5 to 10 years from now, what this conference can be, what the best teams in the conference are. There's a way for them to maximize the 5 and 11 compared to if they're slotted into 2 spots. But this is one of the talking points that I had when we originally talked about the model that had 4 locked in spots for the Big Ten and the SEC and then 2 for the ACC and the Big 12, is that it is still an advantage for the SEC and the Big Ten, and it is a huge negative for the Big 12 and the ACC because there's less opportunities, a lot less opportunities. Having mostly at-large bids creates a chance in multiple years where a conference like the Big 12 could have 3 or maybe even 4 teams that get in. I think if we look at college football right now, results on the field are not going to reflect this. But if we read more so into stories that we read about really rich alumni bases pumping in NIL into programs, a number of the most underrated programs that haven't been successful in the past but keep getting brought up are in the Big 12. And the ones that I'm talking about, there's 4 that come to mind. BYU has a crap load of money. They just signed the number 1 college basketball recruit who's not even from Utah or anywhere near the region that he's going to go play there. Arizona State, there was a whole article this weekend where Kenny Dillingham, couldn't read it because it was behind a paywall, but I saw one of the quotes where Kenny Dillingham thought that they could be this decade's Clemson, where the funding is there. Arizona State is a big alumni base, a very rich alumni base. I think that Texas Tech has a crap load of oil money, and they have shown a willingness to spend money. They could turn into a really good football program.
And they're spending the shit out of it too, man.
Right.
I mean, we've already talked about them. They might win the conference, dude.
All over the place. And then Colorado, for their own unique approach of having the marketability of Deion Sanders, could set them up for long-term success. So I think that as right now we've talked about how the Big 12, there's no clear best team. I think in 3 years from now, we're going to be talking about those 4 teams, and then the rest are like decent. They're decent programs. If you put out enough,
you forgot about the biggest one of all.
Who?
Utah. And we're allowing.
I think Utah's going to get passed. I don't think that they have the same level of money.
Well, they very well may. But let's not forget that they still were in the Pac-12 beating the teams that they shouldn't have.
But that was because of Whittingham. As soon as Whittingham retires, I don't think that Utah is going to be as good as they were for that stretch.
We'll see. I mean, I'm not going to allow a down year to crazy Mormon shit happens out in Utah.
But they're not a Mormon school though.
I don't give 2 shits.
But this is my point, is that all the money is on the Mormon side that goes to BYU.
Okay, well, you can't convince me Utah ain't got Mormons.
Oh, it does. I don't know enough about the state of Utah.
By the way, did you see the whole viral TikTok this week of BYU students, what they call fluffing?
No. What are you talking about?
They can't have relations, so they just they touch each other and they call it fluffing.
But what video are you talking about, man?
It was viral on TikTok. This girl said that she's the fluff queen,
real hard hitting college football now.
I'm just saying.
That's why they'll end up being they'll be a great football program because they're getting paid a shitload of money and none of the guys in the football team could get laid.
They're all getting
no, but it's gonna be all pent up frustration from testosterone. So they're just taking it out on who they're facing each week.
They're fluffing each other. They're so fluffed up. I'm never living that one down. Ever living that one down. Regardless of that, look, lastly for me on this, I just want the best 16 in. We can have debates on who we think the best 16 are in. Having 5 auto qualifiers means absolutely nothing because the teams that win their conference are going to get in anyway, right? You're basically just saying, hey, we're all going to get in for the champion. Maybe there's an upset, but that team would have gotten in anyway.
You're saying a lot of things that I've said before, and you argued with me on. I know it's different because the playoff is expanding, and now 16 teams.
Well, hold on.
Very rare that a shit.
I don't agree with this model. Hold on now. I don't agree with this model. Arguing with you, if you're asking me what I would do, I don't like this model.
You want all at large. You would want.
I would want all at large. Correct. But if you're making me choose, which basically you're making me choose. Why the fuck would I ever want to do 4-4-2-2-1 plus 3? Why would I ever want to do that?
I agree. I have agreed with you. The side that I have always stood on is the 5-11 model. I have always thought that the 5-11, there needs to be a mix of the really locked in AQs and then the idea that you have brought up, which is all at large.
Now, the reason I pushed back on the 5-11 was because I still don't agree that some conferences get an automatic bye, but they went to straight seeding.
Yes.
So now that So it is constantly evolving. I would go just at right because, Joe, here's the thing. For an example, if a team loses in the SEC or Big Ten championship game and we didn't do straight seeding like how it was set up last year, I didn't believe that Arizona State and Boise State deserved to have a bye. I didn't. I just didn't. I thought it was atrocious.
We agreed on that. We agreed on that pretty closely.
If you're asking me, Blake Ruffino's God's honest opinion, if you're going to force me into 16 teams at large, I don't put them all in. We'll debate about the other stuff. And Joe, when you start expanding this, I mean, you're talking about teams that not only are 9-3, but Joe, some of them are 8-4, asking if we should get in. At that point, there's got to be a point where they're like, well, hey, man, don't lose to this team and you're in.
I just don't think that we're ever going to be in that territory. I really don't. I really don't think that we will be in situations where there's going to be teams that are that bad that are going to be in the mix. It might be like in the NFL where they throw on the graphic on the screen during the game, still in the hunt. And you see the New York Giants that are like 3-12. And it's like, well, technically, if like a million things happen, they're still in the hunt. You're never going to have something that ridiculous in college football. Instead, you'll get the graphic that shows in the hunt, and it'll show a 3-loss team after like week 9. And they need to beat like 2 huge teams on their schedule. But we're all smart enough to know that they can't accomplish that.
Well, what you will do is, let's say that you have 8-3 Nebraska versus 8-3 Iowa. That becomes a playoff eliminator, which
I think if that game is bad enough, the committee and whatever decision-making process that they build, which we've talked about the possibility of them
last game winning like 10-7, people were smoothed out.
If the game is shit enough, I would think that any determining factors, again, we don't know what it's going to look like, what the committee is going to look at. That is still kind of up in the air, something that's not getting talked about enough. I think that there'd be enough intervention there to be like, okay, they didn't do enough in these final weeks. They haven't done enough throughout the entirety of the season. I just find it really hard to believe. Most importantly, though, Blake, neither of those teams in that situation would go to their conference championship. Like, I don't think that we're going to get into a spot where, an Iowa State, Arizona State situation.
Right. There's not divisions. Right. I mean, it's all at large. I mean, shit, Joe, the conferences are at large.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what we're saying here. Basically, all we're saying is the conferences are at large. Why in the Rudy Poo hell would I make my playoff? Not that. You've had divisions for how long? Joe, they've had divisions for how long? When will we have seen Georgia and Texas again? Penn State, Oregon. I mean, it's all at large.
Yeah. That was one of the smartest things the conferences did, was doing away with the divisions, because that would have been this is something that I don't think I've heard anyone talk about. That would have been a cluster F in the 16-team playoff, or maybe even in the 12-team playoff, if we witnessed some of the years like we did where Iowa went to the Big Ten championship game and we're thinking, Iowa doesn't belong there.
Yes, we did see it. SMU. We saw it with SMU. Yeah, we did. We did.
They weren't their division. There were no divisions in the.
I get that, but
I'm talking about specifically, there were no.
But we saw a
team that lucked in because of their division.
Well, no. You're right. It's not division, but we saw a team get walked in because just because they lost in their conference championship game should mean that they're not eliminated.
I think that's a little bit different, and I think that we need it. It's the first year that we did it. I will keep repeating this. The best thing that could have happened for the college football playoff is that the first year ended up being in an entertaining final 4 games, but the rest of it was a shit show. Because the rest of it being a shit show made us highlight, worst possible things happened. Clemson winning, SMU losing, Boise State getting a bye, Arizona State getting a bye. Those were all the worst possible things that could have happened for this first year, but it didn't impact the final outcome because we ended up getting a justified champion that deserved it in Ohio State. We needed those messy things to happen in order to fix it. It would have been awful if it took like 4 or 5 years down the line for us to realize those mistakes, because then everybody would have been saying, oh, this is an outlier. This is only 1 out of the 5 years. We can't go around making changes because 1 year it was weird.
I do feel like last year's situation was an outlier based off of what we'd seen. Is it the norm, or is it going to continue to be the norm, or is it the outlier? Because
it was one.
Right. Well, right now it is. If this continues to happen, right, and 10-2 teams, 8 seeds keep winning, all right, fine. But the last time Ohio State won a national title, Joe, they had to blow out the team in their conference championship game, and some people thought they didn't belong because they had a third-string quarterback and they went in there and won it. They beat Bama. That whole run for them was really unique. Actually, believe it or not, you want to hear a funny stat? It's the last time that the SEC has not been a part of back-to-back national titles. Whether they lost one, they always returned and won the other, right? That year when we changed the